Sexual addiction is such a hard thing to talk about, especially publicly, especially these days with everything going on in the media. How can you be a guy or a girl and talk about it? It's hard on both sides. Doesn't even matter what happened. I mean, the whole point of the matter is what happened, but it's still hard to talk about. Doesn't matter exactly what it is, you know? I mean, I remember when the friends of the girl in high school were just freaking out on me. Like, and I'm like, I don't know, this has never happened before, you know? I just kept telling them over and over again, like, she said to stop and I stopped. It's like they didn't believe me, you know? So this is a very scary moment, you know? Like, I felt like they could have accused me of something, which they kind of did, but I mean, but I don't blame them. I mean, with what happens regularly, like, of course I don't blame them. But it's hard to talk about and not feel like, even though it didn't happen, like, it still felt like it happened, right? And I'm like, how do kids explore their sexuality these days? In any kind of a healthy manner, you know? As a kid, like, there was no way to do that, you know? I mean, not even just the porn addiction, right? I mean, a lot of kids look at porn, right? But, you know, I didn't really have good exposure to what a relationship should be. And so when you try to do it, it's like, I don't know, it's messy, it's never clean, like how these relationships go and how they start and how they end. So how do you start and end a relationship without a lawsuit or an accusation? Like, I don't know, you know? When people fall in love or get in relationships, you know, there's a lot of trust there. When trust gets broken, a lot of fireworks happen. Maybe more so than they ever did in the actual relationship. So it's hard to say. I don't know. How do you control that, right? I mean, do you just want people to just not have relationships anymore? You know, how do you control people having healthy relationships and all the factors that are included in that, you know? Of course we don't want people to get hurt. But how do you control people? There's no way to control that. People are going to still get hurt. There's no way to litigate that any differently. I don't know. Like, we live in an imperfect world, and unfortunately, terrible things happen. But I don't know. I just remember being told I did something that I didn't, and being scared to death of it. I mean, I was underage and everything, but still, like, it's still scary when you didn't do something, you know, you didn't do, and people kind of teamed up against you. And I had to make the case that I was just so ignorant to the fact that this couldn't have even happened, really, you know? Like, what a tough subject, you know? Because obviously, you know, the girl had told me stop because I was going past a boundary, but if I didn't get to that boundary or go past it, she would have never said stop. So how did I know what the boundary was unless we communicated that to each other? So she communicated it to me, and I listened and I followed through. But does that mean that a boundary still wasn't crossed? I mean, I guess it does. Like, so does that get litigated against? Because, I mean, how do you know when the end is, right? What your limit is? We were both pretty naive. We didn't know what that was, and she had more of an idea as we were going along than I did. So she communicated that with me. But I think when she told the story to other people, I think it came across that I was just, I, I was kind of like a monster, and I'm like, well, maybe, but that's not how it was. I just was ignorant about what limits are, you know. I knew to stop when no was said, so that's good. But I mean, at what point do we as a society say, look, like you can't learn these things with other people anymore because it's too dangerous, right? Like, I don't know, you protect each other so much that we never have relationships. I think that's the biggest thing. Maybe that's where I'm at in my life today, is like, I don't want to hurt anybody anymore. I don't want to cross boundaries with anybody anymore. And so it's better just not to involve myself, to isolate myself. Because apparently I don't know what the right boundaries are. I don't know how to keep a steady marriage steady. And at what point do you cross that boundary and just not know until the other person tells you, you know? I mean, my ex, in my opinion, when I left, she had crossed a boundary. In reality, it was mostly I think more my issues, like mentally, but in my mind, I felt like she crossed the boundary and I told her to stop and we're getting a divorce, right? And it makes you angry at first, right? Like reactive. But I don't have anything against her. I wasn't trying to get even with her or think she was evil. Never believed that. Ever, ever. I think she's a great person. So how can we still believe in each other, you know? If things happen, and I know we cross the line too far as a society sometimes, and you know, I'm a nurse. I know that rape happens a lot, and it's a terrible thing. But there's a lot of area before that happens officially that I don't know how we can regulate that as a society, you know? I just don't know. It's very subjective. It's too subjective. And when there's two people involved, how do you get them on the same plane, right? Especially when something like that is in question. Obviously, they weren't on the same level. So how do you make it so people that aren't on the same level just stop seeing each other or don't interact with each other? Because it's not only terrible for the person that it was affected, you know, that it happened to, but it's still terrible for the person that did it. Like, we don't know the full story, you know, and in my case, it was a terrible experience for me, and I know it was a terrible experience for her. One which we both never forget, and which we don't want to repeat. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I just think that it needs more care and not reaction from us as a society. I think we need to give it more care, and it's more delicate, you know. Maybe that's coming from a psych nurse that has seen a lot more terrible things even happen than that. And who are these people, you know? Am I a monster? Maybe I am, you know. Maybe I should be thrown on an island somewhere because of the way my brain chemistry works, or what I was exposed to as a child. Maybe that is the answer. I hope not. I don't know. I kind of put myself on an island preemptively. I know my deficiencies. I already stick myself on that island. So I don't think that is the answer, and we shouldn't just be throwing people on an island just because they're different. On both sides, please, people. Like, I feel like we need to have a heart. Figure out the right way to do this. Everything's a case-by-case basis, and I mean, we shouldn't just burn a lot of our country to the stake because they look at porn, you know? I don't know. Gosh, I wish I had more answers, but I just know my experiences.